So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our session today that has the potential to transform our nation to a place where your economic level does not determine your life outcomes. A lot of us came here through Teach for America for that same reason. Today, we'll get ready for the next civil rights issue of our time, college completion. So I want to actually make sure I'm in the right place. Do we have any people here who care about equity? If I could hear you, please. Do we have any people here who care about social justice? Do we have any people who want to make sure that all of our kids not only get into college, but through college? Welcome. Welcome to be engaged, to be inspired, and to be ready when you go back on Monday to take action. My name is David Silver, and I was a Teach for America LA Corps member in 1995. Old school. Do we have anyone else from LA over here? Let's hear it. After that, I became a program director in the Bay Area. Do we have anyone in the Bay Area here? Let's hear you. And then I was also a school director in a place called Moody Towers. Does anyone know Moody Towers? But then there was a moment, and I think each of us have had it, where it changed my life. And specifically this moment was when I heard a statistic that out of 20 kids in Oakland, where I used to teach, only one was eligible to go to a University of California school. I thought about my 20 kids in my classroom, and I invited them in, and I said, hey, how many of you all want to go to college? They all raised their hand. I said, how many of you think you're going to college? They raised their hand. I said, if we keep things the way they are right now, only one of you gets to go. They got all mad at me and said, Mr. Silver, why are you being so mean? I said, hey, do you want to do something about it? They said, yeah. I said, what if we create an entire school from kindergarten on? We will make sure everybody is going to and through college. And that was the creation of Think College Now. Anybody from Think College Now or Oakland in the house here? Thank you. At that point, I remember, we were there for 8 years. We made some good gains academically, and I was in Washington, D.C., just about 5 or 10 minutes away from here 6 years ago, and I testified before Congress on how to turn around a school. And when I came back from Washington, D.C., I came back and I talked to some of those same families. And I asked them, hey, how's it going? Somewhat arrogantly, I'm in D.C., I'm coming back, all that, thinking they're going to say all these positive things. And what they said surprised me. They said, we don't care about all those test scores. You made us a promise 8 years ago. You told me that my kid's going to go to and through college. What happens after middle school? I didn't have a good answer. So at that point, I joined an organization called College Track, which, anybody from College Track here? Which does an incredible job of making sure that all kids from low-income backgrounds are going to be able to not just get to college, but through college, and has a college completion rate that is light years ahead of the regular college completion rate. In addition to that, I was there, and then my kids actually went through from second grade. Those same second grade kids, I invited them back, and out of 39 kids, 31 went off to college. That's good, but that's not enough. And at that point, I realized that I wanted to do even more. And at that point, I came on board in Oakland to try to help transform a city to be able to launch an initiative from cradle to career where every kid from birth is on their pathway to college called the Oakland Promise. So I ended up being there, and right now I'm the director of education there. Excuse me. Right here. I am proud to say that today we are about to hear from experts. And when I say experts, I'm talking about people that are leading organizations from the top. I'm talking about people that have been in those organizations and know and feel what it's like. This is going to be a real session, and we're going to be able to share it with you, and hopefully you will be inspired. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to this session, and I want to start it off with a guy that is so incredible. He is leading it out in Chicago. He has been someone that has led one goal to unprecedented results. If we could give it up for Jeff Nelson. I'm going to improv this. And then I also want to lead it out for someone that has led KIPP through college, not to college, KIPP through college in a way that has been unprecedented. Another first-generation student, Jane Dowling. Let's give it up for Jane as well. And then we have from College Track, leading out from New Orleans, homegrown, was a first-generation student. His parents didn't even graduate from high school, and now he's leading it out for his city. He's a Stanford grad, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Woodward. And then it wouldn't be complete without our students here. So if you look here, we have these amazing students that have gone through the program. So going through KIPP to college, someone that has been an inspiration to not only Jane, but many others at KIPP. If we could give it up for Luigi. Anybody from KIPP in the house, actually? And then over here, we have someone from One Goal who has also been an inspiration, not only to Jeff, but people across this nation of what can be possible when we invest in our students. Ladies and gentlemen, Asia. And to close, we have someone that has been basically an inspiration to me personally. She came through College Track. She later became the first ever Teach for America teacher selected in College Track, and she taught at Think College Now and is now leading out XQ, which is going to look at how we can revolutionize our high schools to make them truly ready for our kids. Marlene Castro. So without further ado, I would like to welcome One Goal CEO and co-founder, Jeff Nelson.
Is this thing on? This thing on? Great. I have the dubious responsibility of going after that guy and all of his t-shirts, and I don't have one. But I'm excited to be here today to talk to you a little bit about One Goal. So 9 years ago, like so many people in this room probably, I was a teacher. This was my 6th grade classroom at O'Keefe Elementary. I like to think of it as though this was our beloved community. That's monarchy, and there's my microphone. In March of that year, things were going really well. We'd just gotten our state exams back, and in math and in reading, my students had exceeded state standards. Not only that, they exceeded all standards set by Teach for America, and each one of my 32 students had actually hit their individual goal for that year. Parents and guardians in my classroom were totally engaged. There was little division between home life and classroom life. And expectations in the classroom were through the roof. We talked very concretely about college and higher education plans within 6th grade. It felt as though we were closing the achievement gap, or so I thought. Fast forward a few weeks later, Friday morning, April of that year. It's a cold day. I wake up, I go down to my car, I'm about to get in my car, and I pick up a newspaper. And this is the front page. It was the first time a study of its kind had ever been conducted proving the college completion rate for an entire market. At the time, it was recorded that only 6%, 400,000 kids would complete college on time. By now, 10 years later, people throw around these statistics as though they're common knowledge. I would suspect that everybody in this room has heard that 1 in 10 statistic, or 6% or 9%, these criminal pieces of data that by now we think are somewhat common. But when this came out, it was shocking. I think it shocked every single educator, every single family. I remember going into my classroom that morning, and I had silent reading, and I'm walking through the aisles of my classroom amongst these 32 kids. And if you've been an educator, you know that by March of a school year, that's an extension of your family. Like, these just aren't students. I spent more time with those kids and those families than anybody in my life. I loved each and every kid. And I'm sitting there trying to pick out which 2 of the 32 will go to college. Which 2 out of the 32 will have any shot at even the most basic of American dream. And most importantly, which 2 will achieve what they had written down 4 weeks ago about where they want to be on their 25th birthday. To say that that was a bad day would be a massive understatement. In fact, I'd probably label that as top 2 worst days of my life. Less than a year later, I, with others, had co-founded a new organization called One Goal. The idea was that we were going to statistically, systematically, dramatically change those odds nationwide. And we did what any good idealistic savant do when they start. We obsessed on the problem. And we spent hour after hour, day after day, trying to figure out what was going on in the sector. We saw so many good organizations with inspiring things happening, and yet the needle like this was barely moving. When we asked ourselves why, I mean, we literally looked at 800 organizations at the time, there were 3 things that stood out. Number 1 was that you could categorize every single one of those interventions as either really effective or really scalable. You were not seeing the nexus between the two. When we asked why, this was the main reason. Exceptional teachers, or even great teachers, or even moderately great teachers, were left out of this puzzle. Incredible volunteers, mentors, counselors that were massively overworked were uniformly teaching content of how kids get into and through college, and yet incredible assets within the building who were proximate to our kids were not being engaged in the issue. In fact, I would argue that at that point, that was the only component of education reform that had left the teacher out. And because of that, the third thing was happening. Kids that were academically or non-academically moderately performing, how I would have labeled myself in high school, were not included in this puzzle. You had to be, if you were poor in this country, you had to be off the charts talented by the time you were 16 to think of college. So we tried to design a model that could scale, that was leveraging those most proximate to the issue, and was systematically targeting kids that had been left out. We called it One Goal. This was our mission statement. It still is. And it's a very simple model. We go into a region, whether it's Chicago or Houston or the state of Massachusetts, and we find hundreds
of... Or Oakland, sorry.
Or soon to be Oakland. David has his way. We will find exceptional educators who are already teaching content in high schools. They already have social capital in the building, and they already know how to instruct. And we will take and enlist those individuals, and they will teach our program for 3 years. For the first 2 years, it's a 40-minute credit-bearing course called One Goal during junior year and senior year. And then all of the teachers, all of the content, and all of the kids move online during freshman year of college. And through tracking, coaching, content, mentorship, et cetera, we ensure that kids show up on the first day of sophomore year with the academics and the non-academic credentials to succeed. And it's working. We've been doing this for about 8.5 years. 84% of our students have enrolled on time the fall after high school and college. And of those who have enrolled, 77% are either still in college or have completed. And this isn't some nice little charity in Chicago. By the end of this year, we'll be serving about 10,000 kids across 5 states. But more importantly, next summer, we're beginning to architect a plan that would take us for the next 5 years. With minor adjustments in how we scale, we could reach the day in which we're serving 100,000 kids a year. If we could do that, and we could come anywhere close to current outcomes, we would directly move the college completion rates in the United States for the first time in decades. About a year ago, the president was asked at a summit, what do you think needs to be scaled in order to change higher education? And he talked about One Goal. And specifically, he talked about this kid, Caleb. At the time, Caleb was a freshman in college outside of Chicago. And Caleb was a very typical One Goal student. He was an average kid academically. He was an extraordinary human being. And he had a 3.8 in college. And the president asked this rhetorical question, what would happen in this country if every kid like Caleb, who deserved to cross the finish line, actually did? So, Mr. President, we intend to find out. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give it up for Jeff Nelson and One Goal. So the TED Talk will continue with Jane Martinez Dowling, Executive Director from KIPP through college.
All right, where's Katie? I just want to see the flag. There you are, okay. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
This is the post-lunch crowd. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jane Martinez Dowling. I am the Executive Director of KIPP through College in New York. I am also a 1990 Charter Corps member from New York. And I don't have a silver watch, but I have a silver pin. Okay, so I'm going to take the next few minutes to tell you a little bit about what we do at KIPP through College. But before that, I want to get to a quote that I heard today when Howard Fuller and Randy Weingarten were talking earlier today. He said, you can change your tactics, but not your principles. And it is with that that we take this work on at KIPP. Everything that we have done from the inception of our program when our founders founded it in 1994 came from the premise that if kids and families joined our program, they would be with us, we would be with them to and through college. And we've evolved a little bit over the years because what we realize is what we want our students to have after a KIPP education is fulfilling, economically self-sufficient, choice-filled lives. So, Luigi is going to talk to you a little later about what KIPP through College has done for him and hopefully how we do it. What I want to take the next few minutes is to tell you about actually what we've learned, right? We are constantly evolving, and I'm going to tell you that what I have learned as a teacher over the past 25 years is that we have many different kinds of learners. So I know that PowerPoint is supposed to be very beautiful with lots of pictures, but we have visual learners, auditory learners, and tactical learners, right? So I'm going to, for those of you who want to read, it's up on, I'm going to talk a lot, and I always talk with my hands. So we're going to talk about 6 things in less than 5 minutes. The first is that a college degree has never mattered more than it does today, ever, for the kids that we work with. So when someone starts talking about whether college really matters, for first-generation, low-income students, don't believe the hype. It matters. College graduates have a greater chance of better employment, of higher income, and really, very importantly, beyond college, participating in their community and becoming civically engaged, and ultimately having better health outcomes so that they can lead longer lives. This quote really struck me. The disparity in economic outcomes between college graduates and those with just a high school diploma has never been greater in the modern era. So that's the very first thing. A college degree has never mattered more. Next, what we've learned with our kids as they've gone to college is that academics are super important, and we have worked really, really hard to build really, really strong schools. But non-academic stuff matters too. Sometimes it actually matters more than the academics. Because guess what? When you have a kid or a young man or woman who is as bright as Genesis or Luigi or many of our KIPPsters are, and they are facing emotional or financial or barriers that have nothing to do with their intellect and everything to do with being ready, that's very important. So we are really drilling down on figuring out what we call them character strengths at KIPP, but in the higher ed world, it's about having those non-cognitive attributes that are going to make you really resilient when things get really hard. And that's super, super important for our kids. The third thing we learned is that match matters. Where you go to college is critically important for the students with whom we're working. And this little graph, which I don't know how much of you can see, it pretty much says one thing. If you are high achieving and you have a lot of money and you are high income, you tend to apply to really competitive schools. If you are really high achieving and you have low income, you don't. That blue bar, meaning non-selective schools, that's where most of our kids are applying. And then the fourth thing we've learned is, even though match matters, and even though we are graduating 94% of our kids from high school nationally, and 81% are getting into college nationally, only half of those kids matriculating are graduating. And so we have to build interventions, which is why KIPP through College exists, that socially integrate our kids onto their campuses and academically integrate our kids into their campuses. Because as we were talking about the 1 in 10, our aspiration is to really have as many of our students as possible have that college attainment. And the other thing that we've learned, because KIPP always likes to do everything by themselves, is that we cannot do it ourselves. We need partners. We need our higher ed people to understand that the things that our students face are endemic, and we cannot do it being outside of campuses. So places like Franklin and Marshall, and I don't know if Dr. Porterfield's here, he's gonna kill me for putting that picture up there, and Georgetown, and the 70 other college partners that we work with, they're working really hard with us to figure out what is the recipe that we need for our kids to succeed on their campuses. So we're not doing it alone. And finally, perhaps the biggest thing that we've learned is that much we're building are coming at a much faster rate. So 5 years ago, there were 1,000 alumni nationally. Last year, there were 10,000. In 5 years, there are going to be 40,000 alumni from KIPP. 40,000. So think about the fact that at the TFA Summit, there are, what, 15,000 of us? We're talking more than twice that number. So there is a sense of urgency of what we do, that it has to be scalable. We are built on relationships and data, and we have to figure out how to, while staying principled, really figure out the tactics that will have every single one of our kids lead those self-fulfilling, economically choice-filled lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give it up for KIPP one more time. And now, ladies and gentlemen, from College Track, Michael Woodward.
Thank you, everyone. So first, I'm going to start with a quick video, because better than I could tell you the story of our students, you will hear their stories through their voices themselves.
You're getting close. Si se puede. All right, good.
I may need to defer to the computer to start this.
Yeah, I went through College Track. I started in my freshman year, so I think that was like 98.
My name is Marlene Castro. I am a college
Just give it up
student
here.
from the East Palo Alto side. And I am now an Oakland teacher fighting for my students.
There's hope. There's always hope, especially for someone that is trying to make something of themselves.
My little brother wants to go to Stanford, and for those things to happen, you know, they need to have their support. They need to have people that believe in them, be surrounded by this whole College Track atmosphere.
My name is Cheng Wei Liang, and I am a second year at UC Berkeley. I utilize College Track a whole lot still, because the resources are for me to use from middle school all the way till I graduate college.
Somewhere deep inside you is somebody that wants to succeed, is somebody that wants to become more than what they are right now.
I want the next generation to see us as the role model, because the role models that I had growing up pushed me forward, were strong role models. So if I'm a strong role model, that means the next generation gets a strong role model. And there comes an even stronger generation, so we'll become a generation that changes the world with everything that we do.
College Track is like my family. They're my blood. I bleed College Track.
I think College Track has changed my life. I think it has made me get out there and talk to people and tell them, yes, I'm Chicana, and yes, I don't come from one of the best communities or whatever you want to say, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to call college. That doesn't mean I'm not going to get into Harvard. That doesn't mean I'm not going to become a lawyer, or maybe even president. That's what it means. College Track gives us the ideas to do those things.
I'm not just some other kid trying to go to I want to be somebody. I want to be somebody that people look at and is like, I want to be like him. I realize that I can be that person.
Let's give it up.
So you heard some of the stories of our scholars, and thank you, David, for your introduction of me. I, too, am a first-generation college graduate. Luckily for me, I had a sense of agency. I was able to seek out mentors and piecemeal it together to make sure I could get to and through college. Unfortunately, piecemealing it together doesn't always work for everyone. The reason I joined Teach for America is because I was volunteering at College Track, and I realized that my purpose in life was to work with young people. It was the principal at my placement school who was at College Track at 7 p.m. one evening, dedicated, going above and beyond like so many of you do every day, that made me realize I want to work for a guy like that. And so I decided to apply to the Corps. I taught in New Orleans, where I was already living. And when I had the opportunity to come work for College Track, to serve my purpose, to help more first-generation low-income students not only get to, but through college, I jumped at the chance. Our co-founders founded College Track in 1997 with 3 big ideas. The first of which is talent is evenly distributed, but opportunity is not. I refuse to believe, and we refuse to believe, that with all of the students and all of the talent that they possess, that because their opportunities are not equivalent, they will not succeed, and that is the mission of our work and what we intend to do. The second of which is that there are systemic barriers that prevent college completion for students. We know that with the wealth gap widening, the opportunity gap also widens. Our job is not to replace the work that our schools do, but it is to complement and supplement it to fill the holes that exist. And thirdly, because these patterns are predictive, students have the power to isolate the variables and change their trajectories. Everything that we do at College Track is very student-centered. We are there to provide tools, exposure, resources, support, encouragement, and love, so that each of our scholars is able to take full command over their destiny. So inherent in our model are 3 things. 1, we make a 10-year promise to students. Students join our program the summer after 8th grade, and we are with them every step of the way until they get their first bachelor's degree. Within that programming model, it's very comprehensive. So we all know as educators, academics are super important, but we also know there's so much more to a student's story and trajectory. We do that by having 3 key program areas in academic affairs, student life, and college completion. We're also very much about high touch and individualized services. All of our students get individual mentors when they go on to college, and that allows them to thrive and navigate the resources that await them at their respective universities. In the interest of time, I am going to move through, but this is a highlight of the program offerings we have and kind of what it looks like from the time a student enters with us the summer after 8th grade until they graduate from college. Our results, we have more than 1,200 students in college, and more than 85% of them are still enrolled or have graduated.
Let's give it up. Thank you. No, keep going. Yeah. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just appreciating that stat.
I
I'm like, take
apologize.
us home, man.
All right. So lastly, that's okay.
That was
Lastly,
pretty good, no?
what I want to say is that the things that we've learned and where we're headed are very important. In the 19 years we've been doing this work since 1997, we know that purpose and agency matter. As the site director in New Orleans, one thing I always try to implore with my students is that if we can tap into their passion, what it is that wakes them up every morning and motivates them to be successful, and then we can find a problem that they face in their community, something that if resources were endless, they would change it tomorrow, they can discover their purpose. It took us time to get there. We knew that they needed more resources, but now we're thinking very intentionally about when to engage students in their passions and how do we support them into making their dreams realities. The second thing we've learned is that relationships are difficult to scale. We talk about our ACT prep program, our tutoring program, all of these programmings that we provide, but when we talk to students about why they come back, it's because of the relationships that they form with each other and with the staff. Next, not all college experiences are equal. We see that 59% of folks who go to four-year colleges go on to graduate, but only 29% who start at a two-year school get a four-year degree, and only 10% of those who start at a four-year college and reverse transfer to a community or junior college go on to get a four-year degree. Lastly, we operate within a context of complex and dynamic institutions. What I mean by that is quite simply, we've learned a lot in 19 years, but we will continue to learn more because we always have to adapt. With tuition costs rising, legislation around Pell Grant eligibility shifting, we have to be adaptable so that we can not only take the lessons we've learned in the past, but also the lessons that we will learn in the future to best serve our scholars. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give it up for Mike and College Track. So we're going to pick up the pace a little bit. So I'd like to just share with you that, sorry, that didn't really work. For those of you who would like to see that in more action, 10 o'clock tonight, the 90s party. There should be fun, yeah. So I wanted to just, as we transition from our leaders of the organization to the actual students themselves, think about three specific things in that transition. Think of the number 9, the number 1, and the number 3. In terms of that, if one of the things that hopefully you'll get out of this is that the idea is that if you are in the bottom economic quartile, you are 9 times less likely to graduate from college than if you're in the top one. That translates into $1 million or more over the course of a lifetime, and more importantly, engagement in society, a healthier life as well. And then the final one is 3, and that's where we're going to come right over here. As you saw in the College Track video, if you are a graduate of college, it's not just about now. This has generational impact. You are 3 times as likely to have your children graduate from college as well. So right now, I'm going to turn it over to some of those students and who will be actually transforming their families and their communities. Can we give it up for our students for a moment? So I'm going to go quick pace here. So 3 questions. 1, let's start with Marlene here. As a freshman in high school, where did you see yourself in 10 years, and to what extent were you on that path?
Okay, so as a freshman in high school, as Mike mentioned, first of all, hi everyone. My name is Marlene, or Marlene. I am bilingual, and so is my name. And I am from the Bay Area in California. Any Bay Area Corps members? Woo woo! Specifically Oakland, love. Yes. And just shouting you all out because those are the communities that have nurtured me and have really made me who I am and the teacher and educator that I've become and continue to grow from. And so to come from College Track, that means I started with College Track at the summer of when I was transitioning out of 8th grade into my freshman year of high school. At that time, College Track recruited specifically in local middle schools, and I grew up in East Palo Alto and the North Fair Oaks area. So it's literally the other side of the 101 freeway. And it meant a lot to be recruited and for someone to notice who's interested in college, and we have this really great program. Because of that, I entered my freshman year with confidence, confidence that College Track gave me through that summer of programming. And confidence seems this abstract, but it's really important because I had a path that I was on and didn't even know about until College Track stepped in and said, we can transform that. and sorry for getting emotional, but taking me back there, that summer, one of our friends was shot and killed. And so when I specifically say confidence, it's because many of us could have been on that path because of the real gun and gang violence that's prevalent in our community. So to think about just even the scope of confidence, they all of a sudden shed light on this path that I didn't even know could exist for my life and my peers. So I entered with confidence, and I entered high school with a mission. Like, I can absolutely be an academically strong student. I know what college track is because, what college is because I'm a first-generation person born in this country after my parents immigrated from Mexico. So to finally have someone actually shed light on a path that was in the darkness based on my reality around me gave me the confidence to just even start high school ready to go and be on a college track.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Marlene. We'll be hearing more. Let's go with Asia.
How you guys doing?
Asia, from One Goal, I might add.
From One Goal, yes. One Goal, where you at? All right, awesome. Well, during freshman year, I wasn't thinking ahead. I wasn't thinking about where I would see myself in 10 years. I wasn't thinking about what a future would look like in college. None of that was on my mind. Partially because freshman year, who's thinking about college? Who's thinking about anything, We're trying to figure out, what summer programs we're going to go to. We're not even thinking that far ahead. And so I guess another reason I wasn't thinking 10 years ahead is also because I was a struggling student. Like Jeff mentioned earlier, One Goal focuses on students who are those struggling students, those students who need that extra push to leverage themselves toward success. So my GPA freshman year was a 2.6. I was in trouble quite a bit. I was suspended every other week because of my behavior, physical altercations with my peers, very angry, but my teacher saw potential in me. I remember being at this meeting with all of my teachers, and my mother was there, my grandmother was there, and my uncle was there. My mom's crying in the corner because I had gotten suspended again, and they said, you have one more chance, and we're going to expel you because you can't stay at this school any longer. And I didn't at that time believe in myself, but my teachers and my principal put me into One Goal. And since then, I had graduated from high school with a 3.89 GPA from a 2.6. So One Goal has definitely supported me in that journey.
Great. And Luigi from KIPP through college.
So I didn't know where I would be in 10 years as a high school freshman. I knew that I would be working a high-paying job, or so that was the hope, because my single mother had given up everything for me, so my goal was to help her back. Literally gave everything to me. So I had been in KIPP since the 5th grade, and going into a community as KIPP through college and going to the high school was a huge next step. I didn't really know what to expect. I had this community around me of family and friendly faces, and that really is the motto, a team and a family, because that's what it is. I was privileged enough to have multiple fathers at KIPP and multiple mothers at KIPP who continued to check up on me and make sure that I kept pushing forward so I could reach that goal to give back to my mom.
Great. Thank you. So any of you could answer this, or all of you if you'd like. So now, when you started college, what was the biggest challenge that you thought you were going to have, and what actually was the biggest strength that you brought to it, and did that turn out to be the case? We all get along in our college completion world.
We're going in order here. So going in, the strength, so I went to UC Berkeley, go Bears. Any Bears in the house? Yeah. That name carried so much weight. I didn't know the prestige. I didn't know it until I got in. It was just so amazing to understand that I was the first in my family to have graduated high school and walked that stage in June, and that I would be at such a prestigious spot in the fall. And I couldn't have anticipated the academic challenges and the personal and social emotional challenges that I faced, from everything to imposter syndrome to survivor's guilt, because I literally uprooted my entire self and my body to this new space, didn't have any friends, thought that I was academically ready, and I wasn't. And so that was a huge challenge to start to just craft my identity around, and also the academic confidence and preparedness is really how I can name it. But on the flip side, the strength that College Track gave me was just the experiences that I had with them was my sense of community, and specifically community service. As Mike mentioned, there's this whole component of student life that we get access to, and I got exposed to so many opportunities around community service, and I did so many hours of community service when I was in high school. And at first, it started off as like, I just want to get out of my house. My parents always made me come home after school. My really strict Mexican dad, and so he's like, you need to be home. So at first, it was like, I just want to be out of the house, but I of course don't want to be on the streets doing what others do. And College Track really provided me what is community service and how I could serve my community, and shed a light on that. And from there, I gained people skills. I realized I love working with youth. I love working with those younger than me, my peers. I love making parks beautiful. I love reading in the library to kindergarten students. And I love seeing different just things out of East Palo Alto and out of my North Fair Oaks bubble. So I went in with that strength to Berkeley, and I think Berkeley has it in their mission statement that they want students who are going to be global and community leaders. And I'm thankful that that strength was able to really help me confront a lot of my lack of academic confidence. And of course, had to manage my life and work balance, because I was that one kid who did so many activities and all of that stuff, even in college. But without that strength, I wouldn't have been able to confront, and my sense of community, I wouldn't have been able to confront my academic or lack of academic confidence.
Thanks.
Awesome. My biggest challenge that I thought when I started college, my biggest challenge was thinking that I would not complete college because neither of my parents did. Both of them left college during their junior year, and my mom continues to go to college today, and my dad just stopped going. And so I felt pretty defeated, and I felt like the odds were against me. I felt like I couldn't make it. It was pretty challenging during those first 2 years when everything didn't go as smooth sail as I thought it would. I began to that insecurity did slip up and ask me, do you really think you're going to make it? Do you think you're going to be able to graduate from college? Thankfully, it hasn't turned out to be a challenge for me, because now I believe in myself, and now I know that I'm going to graduate college, and my parents tell me how proud of me that they are. And it just feels incredibly encouraging to have so many supporters in helping me to graduate from college. I think my greatest strength is my ability to be ambitious. I learned that during the One Goal process when we were applying to colleges that were reach schools, those schools that you aren't quite qualified for, but you still apply to. And it just taught me to learn how to advocate for myself and tell those schools that I belong there and the reasons why I belong there. It made me point out, even though I had a low GPA during freshman year and disciplinary issues, no matter those, despite that, I still belong at their school. And that has led to me applying for a number of different opportunities. Most recently, I applied to be a student representative for our school. We came here to DC to talk about issues of the cost of higher education and sexual assault on college campuses. And I was one of 2 students who were selected to come with the student body president and vice president as our allies. All 4 of us came, and we discussed those issues, and we advocated for students. So just reaching is what One Goal has taught me, to become ambitious and to reach for things that I think I am not qualified for.
So I would definitely say that one of the biggest challenges was managing my time. At KIPP, I had a lot of adults always reminding us when deadlines were and always telling us Yeah, just reminding us when we should get things done by just to be successful and so that we could get feedback. But getting to college, that was a lot. All the free time you have, and then it's not really free time at all. And then you have assignments, and it's like really late. What do you do? But the one thing that KIPP definitely taught me, and which is my biggest strength to this day, is my perseverance and work ethic that I continue to push on even when the times get hard. Because at the KIPP Summit, some of the slam poets said, teachers believed in me before I believed in myself. And I think that was the realest thing that resonated with me to this day, because I didn't see in myself what all the educators that I had in my life saw in me, which is that I could keep going, and despite getting knocked down, I could get back up with this community.
Great. The final question I'd like to ask each of you is if you could name one thing, that one goal, that college track, that KIPP Through College did for you that helped you to get to the finish line, to be able to graduate from college, what is it? We have a lot of people here in the audience that are either at schools or nonprofits or thinking about starting it. What should the thing they be thinking about is?
One goal has taught me the importance of advocating for myself. Again, I want to go back to those REACH schools. When I was applying to those schools, again, it was in the back of my mind, are you qualified for these schools? Why do you think these schools should accept you? But one goal taught me that they should accept me, that I had shown, again, perseverance. And it also, one goal taught me to develop, those perseverance skills. It taught me to tell my story in a way that it communicated how I showed, it helped me to communicate where I showed strengths, how I developed skills, where I showed perseverance. At first I thought that story of being a pretty terrible freshman, I thought that was not anything that will help me in the process, but it actually did. It helped me so much to learn, you started from this place, but you've grown so much, and to communicate that to people who would be reading my college application. And it just taught me the tenacity. It gave me the tenacity to go after everything that I wanted. It gave me the tenacity to go after schools, after programs, after activities, no matter what it was, to go after it, because I deserved to be a part of that elite group. And then one goal taught me a lot of perseverance. During the college application process, it was brutal. We were going to school and coming home, doing homework or sports, and then jumping right into those college applications. So it was pretty busy months. But it definitely taught me perseverance. Despite that we had to do a lot of schoolwork and prepare for college applications, that we were able to do it, and that we had the support who would back us up and who would help us along the way. There were tough times in college when I thought that college would be too tough, and that I should take time off of school, that I should join the Navy, that I should get a couple of jobs, and then come back to school. But one goal taught me to persevere, taught me to contact my mentors. It taught me to advocate for myself again, and to let them know that I belong at the University of Illinois, and that I should be on time. There we go. And that I should be a part of the class of 2017. So that definitely taught me the importance of that.
Thanks.
In order for me to have been able to graduate from Cal, I ended up, again, I was that kid, I just wanted to be ambitious. I wanted to go for everything, so I chose to pursue a double major, along with doing all the community service work and stuff like that. And the thing that helped me is, for me, it was very personal. My college journey, and even now my professional journey as a first-generation professional, is very personal. And I seek out relationships and support that my parents can't provide me. And not at fault of their own, but because that's just how I was born. And what college track provided me, and this is to spotlight that. So college track didn't always have that one-to-one model in college, and that's not to throw college track under the bus and say, that's college track's evolution. They found out with our cohort, who was starting to get into very competitive colleges, that those relationships we had in high school needed to continue into college. And so that one-to-one mentor that I could call on helped me navigate when I got that first F back on an essay, when in high school I was told I was an A student, right? They helped me navigate the fact that I had to have a job while I was in college, and that was going to take away time, and how to navigate those responsibilities. And they were always just that ear that I can talk to when I was having a difficult time, and things that, again, my parents couldn't always understand. And that's what I think programs who are talking about college access, retention, and graduation need to remember. It's that when you're talking about historically underserved and underrepresented students going into college campuses like a Cal or even just a community college, it's a personal affair and it's a family affair. And so when I go to college, I'm bringing my entire experience with me. And so that means if you want to support me, it's not just going to be academic. It's not just going to be give me an ACT prep course. You're going to be all up in my life because everything is an obstacle. College track mentors had to talk to my parents and sit them down because they didn't want me to move 40 minutes away. Like, it's that personal, and it needs to be part of your mission. And so even though many times we think, oh, the relationship and the social emotional stuff is kind of wonky, I've been in those places where it's seen as like, those things will come naturally. There needs to be dedicated pieces and programs like these that recognizes that your relationships are real and that it's a personal affair for us to go to college.
Bring us home, Luigi.
So definitely one thing that KIPP provided me with was a network of great people and connections, not even just in teachers, but also like a professional network. Because my mom, she knew the people who worked in the bodega, and she knew the people who were living doors down, but she didn't know the higher connections that would give me the experience. And KIPP did, and KIPP set me up with internship programs all over the place, from Hot 97 to working at WeTV, and just gave me the ability to explore all the interests that I had. And it was so personal that they themselves would take out times out of their days to meet me at a Starbucks on Saturday to work on an application, or just to reread over it one time, because I always doubted myself, but they always continue to reach out and just help and provide that mental stability and emotional support. And I think that's really the main thing that they gave me.
All right, let's give it up for all the panelists here. All right, so we're going to try something a little different because these guys have incredible stories. And I'm going to just ask you all to be super, super brief in the answers to these questions because I really want to hear from these guys, their questions. So I'm going to do really quick style. I'm going to ask 6 questions. Each one of you gets one. You got a minute, and then we're going to the audience, and you will still have your minute to close as well. All right. Is that a deal? All right. Here we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the pardon the interruption style approach, I'm going to have each one of you answer the question, and if one other person wants to jump in after, you can, and then we go to the next one. We got 6. We'll start with, we've been talking about this to college for a long time, to college. But through college only came up recently. Why was this not on our collective radar earlier? Why did it take so long? Jane.
So, in 2008, we had our first graduating cohort from KIPP be in their 5th year of college. In 4 years, with our first cohort of 38 kids, 7 of them graduated within 4 years. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what changed the brand from to through.
Got it. Thank you. Anyone else want to jump in at all? Not just about KIPP, but in general, the national dialogue is now going to through.
I'll go real quick.
Yeah.
I think part of the other issue is that unlike the K-12 reform effort, this hasn't been part of the political debate. I mean, people are talking a little bit about the cost for college right now on both sides of the aisle. But think about if you're living in New York right now, or you're living in Los Angeles, or you're in Chicago or the Bay, there are massive fights, blood battles over K-12 policy. And yet, in those cities, in Chicago, you have a Chicago State University, which is almost entirely publicly funded and has a 9% completion rate. If there are 4,000 colleges in the United States today, if they were high schools, half of them would have been closed down in the last 12 years. So I think our collective movement took too long. But I do think that the same ways we're attacking policy at the K-12 level, we have to do the same in higher ed.
Thank you. All right, now we're moving a little bit here. The second question, if you could remove one barrier, take it away so that we could get more of our kids to and through college, what would that one barrier be? Let's start with Marlene.
So I'm answering this question now with my teacher hat. I taught 5th grade at Think College Now, which is a really great environment where I learned how to teach academic rigor and academically prepare my students. But when I think about barriers, I think about how much, teacher preparation and when we talk about school culture and setting priorities and stuff, how we need to continue to think of a child as a whole human being, and how the single barrier for me is still, and again, we're talking about programs that target specific students from historically underrepresented and under-resourced communities and backgrounds and experiences. And so for me, the barrier is we need exposure to the actual path you're leading us to. That means career exploration tied to my passions. So you can't just prep me on an ACT course. You can't just, give me one-on-one tutoring if I'm not exposed to what is it? Well, I want to be a teacher. What does it look like to be a teacher? I want to be a doctor or a lawyer one day. What does it actually mean to practice law or practice medicine? Because not all high schools are providing that either. So for me, a single barrier that I would want to is to remove if I could, and again, in addition to all the others on my list, is that you need to provide exposure to those opportunities connected to passion and career.
Great. Well, you can clap. Let's go. All right, good. You could also tweet. I think, that number sign or hashtag or whatever. Do whatever you'd like to do with that. It was supposed to be a joke. Sorry. Anyone else? Single barrier. Remove it. You're the leader of this nation. What would you remove?
Luigi is so funny, y'all.
Yeah. I'm going to have to separate you guys in a second.
One of the barriers that I would remove is students need to understand the FAFSA process a lot better. A lot of students don't understand the FAFSA process. They don't know January 1st, January 1st, January 1st. They think that they need all of their information in order to be able to fill out the FAFSA, and that is not true. The very first friend that I met at college, we were in a program called RISE together, and that was 2 weeks before school, and we just happened to be right across the hall from each other out of all the dorms. So we became really best friends. And she had to leave after first semester because she didn't fill out the FAFSA the proper way because she didn't know. She didn't have a program like One Goal to teach her January 1st, January 1st, January 1st, you just put in an estimate. So that really weighed on her self-confidence. She came back and all of her friends were a year ahead of her, and she was pretty ashamed. She had to change her major. She went to classes during the first week of second semester, asking her teachers or her professors, could they give her more time to figure the situation out. And it was pretty embarrassing for her, and it really hurt her self-esteem a lot. So teaching students about the FAFSA process and providing them with a program that is similar to One Goal that will show them and teach them how to do it.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to know, so this is, I think a lot of us know that building off of what we said before, we basically failed. Our country has failed in educating our students, K-12, our universities have, in terms of an equitable way. In terms of college completion, 9 times less likely if you're in the bottom quartile. What's the solution? Mike?
Yeah, so I would like to start by saying I think we have to begin with the end in mind, right? To quote Stephen Covey, it's not enough to focus on college completion once they get there. I think we've done a great job in the first wave toward educational equity, which would be college access. And I think we should redefine what college prep means, right? We talk about college prep, but everything that's associated with it tends to be about preparing to get into college, right? College preparation is more linked to college completion than it is access. And so we shouldn't just prepare kids or students to get into college, but prepare them to be successful once they get there. And what we often find is that too often the schools that have the resources to do this are private schools, magnet schools, but we need this to be at all schools. We need the great work of organizations like One Goal, like KIPP Through College, like College Track to be built into every high school across this country.
Great, thanks. Tweetable. Anyone else want to add in for a big solution? Okay.
I mean,
Jeff.
Yeah.
You're
a
very
lot.
articulate.
Let me go
Yeah.
real fast. So, I mean, clearly you've heard that, part of our mindset is that exceptional teachers can make a really big impact. I think the headline is there needs to be a groundswell of educators, counselors, activists believing that college completion is their fight, that anything that you are doing pre-K through age 25, like if that is not part of your fight, we're not going to get there. And I think that pretty uniformly anybody that I've ever talked to in education does it for that reason, and yet they have historically felt as though they haven't had the tools, the structures, or the space or the time to actually deliver on it. So we as system leaders need to architect those ways in which everybody can participate in this act, and recognize that from whether you are working in a birthing center all the way to a job placement site at age 25, like this is your fight.
Let's give it up for Jeff. So I think Jeff just set me up, so I'm gonna take that and run with it. So I'm gonna answer the question. I'm the panel guy. So I think just to add on to what Jeff said in terms of the solution, we're in a dire situation, and I believe that he's exactly right. We've got to start really, really early, and we have to be super holistic and go really, really late. One of the things that we're launching in Oakland is called the Oakland Promise, and you can learn more about it if you go to theoaklandpromise.org and see the video and learn about it. But I wanted to highlight one or two key things of that. We're talking about starting with babies in poverty, and the vision is that every single baby that is born into poverty in Oakland within the next 10 years would have a college savings account. Think about what that transforms the mindset of our most vulnerable. And in addition to that, supporting not only the kids, but the families. If the families are doing specific things that help their education, going to the library, accessing a Head Start, et cetera, then they get another $500 as well. Once those kids go to kindergarten, every single child in Oakland by 2020 will get a college savings account. That makes you, we were all teachers up here. It's one thing to say, oh, you 70% who's low income are gonna get it, and you don't. This is talking about as a whole, you need both an equity strategy, but also a universal strategy to bring everyone together to say college is the expectation for all. And finally, the idea of the prep, just what they're saying. We've got to provide these kind of services in some way at our high schools. We've got to have the application support, the internship support, the scholarship support. And the final piece that the Oakland Promise provides is making sure they graduate from college with a $1,000 to $16,000 scholarship. And in addition to that, the type of mentoring services and the type of support and aligned services that they're talking about here. Talking about cradle to career in a real way where everybody's focused on one goal. I wanted to give it up for you there, Jeff. So the last question I wanted to ask here is, so just to build off of this, I'm going to just throw out three things, and then I want you to kind of let me know your thoughts. So we've talked about these big solutions, but what about counseling? People talk about the counseling ratio. How big a deal is it to actually close that up?
It's a huge deal. Basically, at the KIPP High School, it was one counselor had 30 students, so it was a more personal experience while applying to college and just being mentally sane. I feel like America doesn't value mental health as much as it should. It just kind of glosses over it. And it gives the idea that all you are is this grade, like the amount of time and effort and stress that you put into this one class or like multiple classes it's just a letter. Like, so I think that having more counselors is really crucial because you need someone to help guide you and talk you through all the stress that you're feeling and all the emotions that you need to understand.
What about this scorecards idea? I've heard something about that. Can you tell me a little bit about, is that a solution or not?
Sure. You mean, so scorecards that would connect K-12 and higher ed?
Well, like the idea that, the amount of kids from certain colleges that are actually graduating from college, what
Got
their
it.
low income rates are, what the higher income rates are in comparison.
I'll quick comment, and then I know Jane's got thoughts. I mean, so the fact that we're still debating whether or not high schools should have a component of their effectiveness rated on their college enrollment, college persistence, and college completion rates is outrageous. Clearly K through 12 education has a few different purposes, but undeniably one is to prepare and train young people for the next step. And until we actively track and incentivize those structures, you're not going to see resource allocation change at all. In Chicago, along with Teach for America, KIPP, Noble Street, and others, there was a moment 4 or 5 years ago where we were trying to revise the accountability structure at the high school level. And along with the superintendent and other community leaders, we were able to get college enrollment and first-year college persistence rates onto the high school scorecard. And automatically, I mean, overnight, what happened was that all high school leaders, not just our best, had to allocate sizable resources towards that effort. So until my belief is that until there is an accountability structure that is pre-K through probably age 25, at least through 16, you're not going to see the type of systematic shifts that we need.
I guess just adding on to the scorecard piece, and we have been talking about access, at the completion level, like we have to have the higher ed institutions on the hook. Like we have to make them accountable. In New York City, we have been doing a lot of that with our public institutions. And the other thing that, in terms of scalability, and one of you guys talked about it, is all of our kids, we are very, very lucky to have some incredible partners for our highest performing kids, but we have to figure out how do we serve the middle of the bell curve, and how do we serve our kids who are actually maybe not prepared for college when they're 18. They may be ready at 22, which many of our kids have come back and done when they're developmentally ready, but we have to ensure that we're holding the institutions accountable. And that can happen in a number of ways. The public institutions, there's a lot of work obviously being done in Oakland. In New York, they are tying the CUNY University system to the DOE to figure out when that pipeline, when the kids get from 12th grade, how do they do with their persistence in first year, second year, third year? And in addition, I sit on the board of Regents at Georgetown. I was there at a meeting yesterday, and some of the economics of this are astounding. Colleges only get 48 cents on the dollar for every student. So in addition to the universities, if they're doing their jobs, they need to get more public funding to ensure that they can do these wraparound supports that we're spending all of this money doing once our kids leave our schools.
So let me actually build on that a little bit. The university costing model, is there anything that we should change in terms of that? Is that possible, either for yourself or someone else?
So I actually asked President DeJoy this yesterday. I think that one of the things we all need to look at is, does the current university model work for the 21st century student, right? And one of the things that we're doing at Georgetown, and they're doing strategically, is thinking about what is this campus going to look like 50 years from now? And also thinking, and he told a really long story about how they got rid of the medieval studies major. And so just really being thoughtful about what is it that our students need, that's going to build some efficiencies there that, again, perhaps may give some money to the kids that need it in order for them to persist and complete.
Great. We have 2 more questions, but hopefully you have theirs. So I'm going to ask people to, if you do have questions, I believe there's mics where would they ask the question? Yep, so just go over to those mics. So last 2 questions. Scale. Right now, the number of students impacted by these incredible programs is sadly just a drop in the bucket. Is there a scalable solution?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, so the number that we're trying to attack is today there are 1 million ninth graders that grow up in the bottom economic quartile. So if 9% of that class is completing college, that's 90,000 students. So in order for the country to go from 9% to 10%, we would need 10,000 new discrete students. Jane talked about 40,000 kids in the 2020-21 academic year. Our growth trajectory gets us to around that level around the same time. I mean, I think what's interesting here is we're going to actually, the huge, big, mammoth question for all of us will be, can we maintain outcomes at that level of scale? I think that sort of two major things. One is it's going to require massive coordination and collaboration, field building from the college tracks and the iMentors, and go down the list across CMOs and nonprofit organizations alike. And then secondly, it's going to require all of us to collectively demand and inspire the philanthropic and the public sector market to tie dollars towards college completion efforts. We've seen in small pockets and communities that is doable. We've seen it in Oakland. And I think that it's actually completely doable at a national level.
Great. I know we have about 10 questions here, so I'm going to ask the final question here to Asia. If you could ask the White House to do one thing before our president leaves, what would it be?
It's a big question. If I could push one thing, I would go right back to that FAFSA process, educating students about what that FAFSA process is, breaking it down, and so that students and their parents can understand the FAFSA process. And also, I want to share a story pretty quickly.
Really quick. I want to get these 10 people. Go ahead.
All right. So there was one year when my parents made $35,000, and my EFC, expected family contribution, was $0. And then the next year, my family's income sliced right in half. It was $18,000, and my EFC was also $0 again. But that special circumstance wasn't taken into consideration, that my family's income dropped drastically, right in half, and my mom's taking care of 3 children. And so that special circumstance wasn't taken into account. We had less resources than we had ever had. We didn't know how I was going to go to school, and it was really frustrating for my parents and I, because I thought, that challenge that I mentioned earlier, my parents not graduating and thinking that I wasn't going to graduate, that insecurity rose back up. And I was wondering, can I make it? How am I going to do it? But thankfully, I could reach out to my mentors and resources, and they were there to support me. Was that quick?
Great, thank you. All right, we're going to go, and I'm going to be really clear here. If you start talking about yourself or your organization or anything, I'm cutting you off. All right, question, you have 10 to 20 seconds to ask your question. One of you will answer. I want to get through everybody. Go.
Great. So you spoke a little bit about scalability and the need to serve more students, but in your worker experience, is there anything you found that just doesn't work, or that we should be subbing out or deprioritizing in favor of more sustainable practices?
That was a great question. I just want to note that. Excellent. Good modeling. Anyone?
So I'll start. What doesn't work is doing everything for your students all the time, so that they are not prepared when they get to college to at least process what they need to process and get through it. What does work is building a lot of the non-academic and academic skills and being a resource so that you can lead them and model how you take care of a FAFSA problem, but you don't do it for them.
Thanks. Over here.
So you guys have talked a lot about wraparound programs that are adding additional services. We haven't talked a ton about institutions changing to address their own completion rates. What higher education institutions are you excited to send your students to, because they're changing for the better to increase low-income first-generation student completion rates?
Excellent. Who wants it?
Sure, I'll take it. It may seem like a plug, but I'm excited to send students to Stanford University. Since I went to Stanford in 2004, their percentage of first-gen low-income students has more than tripled. And that's just a direct effort of student advocacy on campus The problem with that is so many of the schools that are considered best fit are the most competitive schools in the country. And so what we need is, while there are models that exist, those models need to work alongside other schools. And again, that accountability piece is so huge, so that the social-emotional needs, wellness needs, all these things are met.
So I'm going to actually ask them to also say it. So, like, what are the 3 to 5 schools that you're encouraging your kids to go to that may or may not be the top tier schools that are getting the kids to graduate?
So I think that within the very vast CUNY and SUNY system in New York, there are definitely programs, particularly our EOP programs and SEEK programs and ASAP programs, all of those which target all different kinds of learners that are building those wraparound programs in-house. So we're pretty lucky in New York.
Any other names of colleges?
Just one thing that we've been incredibly fired up in Chicago, Loyola University, the 4-year institution. A lot of people have heard about this, built Arrupe College as a 2-year model into its 4-year institution, and it's co-designed it with One Goal, with Noble Street, with so many other players locally. And what we've heard from students in just the first 7 or 8 months, it is working, it is cost effective, and the university is taking full and total ownership over it.
Yep. The one other school I'm going to just put a plug in, it was mentioned earlier, is Franklin and Marshall. They've done an incredible job, and if you want to check out, they're a great model if you want to look at that. Over here.
Hi, I'm wondering if any of the organizations represented today have in the past or are interested in working more closely with the key stakeholders on the college campuses themselves, such as the instructors or the counselors, so that they're better equipped to have their pedagogy informed based on what the first generation students need and what their hurdles are.
Thank you.
That's actually a pretty large part of what our college partnership work is. Again, in the spirit of not doing everything ourselves for our students, we really try and push them to go and use those resources on campus. And many of them in many colleges, they don't have enough money and they need to improve, but they are very, very open to working with us and looking at our best practices in program design and then taking them onto their campuses. So we do an awful lot of that.
Great. Anyone else?
Oh, sorry. Well, I was just going to quickly spotlight College Track, maybe something similar to what Mike would say. But so at the California Public University System, building coalitions, these are large systems. So College Track Bay Area and College Track LA have formed partnerships with the UC and CSU schools, and looking at their data, looking at where majority of students were going. And on these sites, there are already educational opportunity programs. And so shout out to diversity and EOP programs like that, who are really continuing the thread of what College Track starts in high school and College Track doesn't have to recreate the wheel. It's about partnering and making sure that those systems on campuses are connected to College Track. So.
One other connection as well. When we did launch the Oakland Promise, we had 14 university presidents there, 22 MOUs signed, a lot of them similar in partnership with KIPP and also College Track as well.
Hey there. So rural communities like the Mississippi Delta, where I taught, face some pretty unique challenges. For example, they're really, really isolated, and region-wide, there's a lack of economic opportunities. So my question is, how can we make these really great College Track One Goal programs work in those communities?
Great question.
So we're not there yet, but it's on the radar in a big way.
After Oakland. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, after Oakland. So much of our model is delivered via a virtual setting. And while we absolutely acknowledge that there are in-person, especially coaching opportunities that happen in the classroom with our staff and our teachers, if we can identify in rural communities and in communities where we're not going to build out a huge region, a really committed educator that goes through our selection process and a committed principal that is likely going to need to pay for the full subsidy of the program because we're not going to build philanthropic support in each spot, we think there's a real serious play there. We're not there yet, but in that, when we're talking about going from 10,000 kids to 100,000 kids, there are an enormous number of communities right now where college completion is a tragic issue, and we think that there's a real scalable solution there.
I'm going to keep moving here. Yep.
Hi, I'm an admissions officer at Yale University, and my colleagues and I are extremely curious. What are some of the most effective strategies out there during the summer before a student's freshman year of college to help them effectively transition to life in college?
Excellent question. What should happen in the summer to avoid summer melt?
Definitely. There is a program at the University of Illinois, a program called RISE. There we go again. A program called RISE, and they help students who are minorities and low-income communities find students who are experiencing this exact same thing and kind of become a cohort. That program during that summer, we knew that there were students like us on campus, and we weren't afraid to go that first day. We knew that we could count on them, that we exchanged numbers after, and it was a leadership day for us. We learned about leadership skills. They educated us about FAFSA and so many other things that you just need to know for college. So we knew by the time that we came back on college that we weren't outsiders and that we had a group to start with and that we could all support each other during the process.
So I'm going to just add one more thing here and ask you. So is there and again, I'm looking for brief here. So is there one thing that you guys try to do in the summer right before your kids go that you could just tell people, and or one model organization or university partnership people could look up?
Yes, so we have developed over time a college transition program over the summer to avoid summer melt. I have to say that we try and push as many of our students to those programs on campus first, because that is the most important piece, to have them on campus. We also have developed a very comprehensive transition checklist, because what we haven't really talked about today is a lot of this work, Asia kind of mentioned it, is incredibly transactional stuff that you just have to learn how to do. And so we try and literally, there's a 32-thing checklist that
Could
our
we get
students have
that
to
from
get
KIP?
through.
Is that copyrighted? Or
It
yeah.
is on our KIP share. I'm sure we can
All right, good.
get it
We'll
out
see
there.
what we can do. All right. All right, anything else?
I want to shout out two programs on that, and that's UC Berkeley EOP does a summer bridge program, and they are also one of the first campuses around the country to have a Dreamer Resource Center to specifically help undocumented youth transition successfully into college, and then the Puente programs also in California. I would look at those two.
Great. Over here. Your questions are amazing, by the way. Keep going.
My question is for Jeff and Mike, either or. What is the demographic/academic background of the students that you serve that are in your programs? And your programs have 77%, 85% persistence rates. What are the reasons or situations of the students who don't persist or graduate, and what are you doing to address it?
Look at this respect. Yeah, thanks. Such a friendly
Yeah,
group.
so great question. The first thing is, so I'll start with the end in terms of what are we doing to address persistence needs. We find that a lot of our students have financial gaps. And so while their financial aid can be robust, especially those who go to college and they're struggling academically, oftentimes they'll find themselves, their financial aid gets taken away or restricted. So we actually provide financial scholarships for our students as well, based not only on their performance when they were in high school, but also based on the need of the student in college. Because oftentimes that gap, if we can close it, it makes the college graduation that much more viable for them, regardless of academic performance. In terms of the first part of your question, could you repeat that, please?
I wanted to know what was like the academic or demographic background of the students that you serve.
Right, great. So at least 80% of our students are considered middle performing. We know that a ton of resources are available to high performers, and so we try to focus on that middle of the bell curve, because we know that if we can move the needle on that, that's going to be the true game changer in the college completion story nationwide.
So real quick, the target population, so first of all, we serve 96% of our student population are African American or Latino Hispanic. We specifically target kids that halfway through high school are matching at the 3 lowest selectivity tiers for college if they would apply at that moment. 2 years, non-selective 4s, and moderately selective 4s. It's different in each city, but on average, you're talking about setting ceilings where the cohort has to have an average GPA of 2.6 or 7 or below. In terms of the students that are currently not persisting, it's a long answer. Let me give you the sort of quick bullets. So number one, I think what Mike's getting at is that, and I think you could probably see this across the college access and success sector and the CMO sector. When students are in really rigorous programs, typically the academic components and the non-academic components, the things that are preventing the mass number of students from actually succeeding have been handled to some extent, and the financial burden becomes a deal breaker. And usually for us, it is a change in the financial package post-enrolling in college. And then the second thing, real quick, is, and I think, I mean, a couple of students talked about it. The fact that we have a system in predominantly white institutions where basically every student of color feels imposter syndrome to some extent, like that is, you know, there are so many reasons why you wouldn't complete college generally, but to add on the fact that in most institutions, academically, non-cognitively, and financially, our kids get messages which are, this is not for you, time and time again. I had one student tell me one time, it is miraculous that any kid makes it through, not that any kid drops out. So that is a very large bucket of reasons, but you can categorize them in certain ways and try to directly address them preemptively and during and in real time.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't care what you say, Mr. Moderator. I'm going to talk about myself because I have an interesting perspective. I am the proud mother of a barely 21-year-old.
You get an excuse. Go ahead. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. A barely 21-year-old junior-ish, and there is a story behind that. And also the surrogate mother of a lot of her friends. I have a lot of anecdotal stories about them coming back and the reasons why. So I'm curious if your organizations, what you plan to do or what you are doing to target parents and parental support, because I can't help but feel that if I had talked to Marlena's mother myself, I would have explained 40 minutes is like, I don't know, 30 minutes drive or something. 40 miles is a 30-minute drive.
Great question.
Thanks.
How are we involving families?
It's interesting for me, this work has really changed since becoming a mother, right? And so I'm actually that person who picks up the phone and talks madre a madre, this is going down, and Luigi better get it together. And that's part of the solution. It's a three-legged stool, right? And so there are a lot of laws around what you can talk about with parents and once they are college age, but we at KIPP very intentionally have our families sign waivers to that if they want to, so that we can keep that going for the families, because we find that so many times, it's like Asia was saying, it's not just an isolated incident with the student, it's a whole family thing that's going on that we have to address.
During the parent-teacher conferences, since my family couldn't make it all the time to like meetings that we would have bi-weekly or say, so during those parent-teacher conferences, my program director talked about the FAFSA process with my mother. She also just told her about the college applications, the schools that I was applying to, what those letters were looking, or what the essays were looking like, and the letters of recommendation. So she was involved during those parent-teacher conferences, and she knew the progress that we were making. We explained it to my mom as much as we could about the FAFSA process and how it was doable for me to afford college. So we were definitely mentioning that during the parent-teacher conferences.
Great. We'll take one quick statement from College
Yeah.
Track, and then we're going to go over here.
I think a formal thing that I would add to what's already been mentioned is, again, building it into your actual program, that you sit down and have those conversations. As you mentioned, the only reason a College Track staff member sat down with my parents is because they knew that, and I had confided in them, but it wasn't built into the program. So it needs to be built in. And so as a teacher at our school, we were encouraged, but I made it my mission. Every week I was calling parents. It was good comments, it was ways to grow, and it was every week I made it a goal for 1 to 2 families. So you can do it as an educator, you can do it as programs to actually build it into your practice and to better serve and meet your goals. How are you involving families? And last thing, make it fun. So at College Track, we would have showcases, and all of our families were invited to come, and you have to, the students, you know, oh, it's not cool to show up with my mom or da-da-da, but it's a family affair, and you have to make it fun too, and that's part of that.
Thank you. I'm going to go over here.
So I too am going to break. I am the proud parent of a 19-year-old young man with an intellectual disability who has defied the odds and is now attending George Mason University. And so my question is around how are we addressing the college needs and possibilities of our students with intellectual disabilities and making their parents aware that there are college options for them even when high school graduation was not possible.
Thanks. We're going to ask, we are actually almost at time, and I want to make sure you have your 1 minute, but I would like to see if someone could answer that question.
So really quickly, at the KIPP High School in New York, we have an incredible person who directs a lot of these processes. And I've actually learned over the last few years, there is a lot of money out there for students who want to go to college, who have IEPs, and in New York it's called Access VR. It's about making sure that there's someone in your building who is able to educate all of the folks in your building about the resources, and also making sure that you really push at the district office to make sure that those things are available, because they are out there.
Over here.
This could just be the teacher and me, but this question's for the student leaders on the panel. What are you all doing as leaders on your campus, or just active members on your campus, to connect to those students who share your similar backgrounds or share your similar stories, who have made it to college but are struggling to get through college for lack of connection or resources that you have sitting here on the panel?
And Luigi, I haven't heard much from you, so I want to know, you get the first crack.
I was going to take it. So I was last year, a bunch of seniors started a movement for Casa Latina at Georgetown because Latinos felt like there wasn't a place for us, right? So after that, I was elected the facilitator, and I continued to push forward. It was a long summer with various meetings with administrations to make sure that people on campus felt like they had a safe space. People who looked like me could tell their story and not be ashamed of it, despite the thickness of their accent or the brownness of their skin. And they could just be able to put forth their complex identities and feel like there was a home at Georgetown for them.
Also at our university, so a lot of students know that, I feel odd saying this, but a lot of students do know that they can look up to me. A lot of students know that they can ask me anything, and that I'm going to support them as much as possible. And also, the students who are just coming in, I don't baby them. I let them hunt. I let them fish. I let them go after it. So when they ask me a question about something that I know that they can find the answer to themselves, I would say, did you try this, this, or that, before I answer it for them, because a lot of students don't know how to do it on their own because they've been taught to be dependent. So so when they come to our college campus, I'm teaching them to be independent, to pursue things on their own, and to join other groups, and to not sit with the same friends, and to not go to the same programs, to stretch themselves. And also just constantly texting them about resources, or saying, hey, there's this program tonight. I know you mentioned study abroad, so we're gonna get you there.
All right, I'm gonna have to cut you. I'm sorry. Marlene, if you want to say a quick word. Yep.
One word? No. So a quick comment was...
I'm happy to stay for a while if you guys want.
Okay, time, guys. All right. So I will highly encourage here the peer-to-peer aspect of on a campus, whether it's K-12 or even at a college campus. At UC Berkeley, I was a peer academic counselor with the Education Opportunity Program and my scholarship program, the Incentive Awards program, and we were peer academic counselors. I was there for 2 years, and we were trained on all these policies that you can go to the big College of Letters and Sciences for. Sometimes that information is better transferred just in peer-to-peer, and we sometimes diminish that relationship, but it's really powerful when you leverage it. And so those spaces had a really good peer academic counselor program.
Thank you. Our final question.
All right. Thank you. This is going to be quick, but in terms of continuing this dialogue and sharing strategies that work and building partnerships, where is that happening online so that it continues after this conversation and people here can take it to their classrooms and their institutions?
That's a nice question. Thank you. Who would like that?
We have to figure out how to get KIPP Share out there, so I'm looking at our communications and external relations person. But we will definitely follow up, because we have a lot of stuff that we can share.
And I think you're pointing out a sizable gap in the field. I think there is not yet a robust marketplace where this stuff is open sourced yet.
So, I mean, one thing I would say too is I think it is something that we could do better on. And frankly, I mean, there's a lot of banter here because we all know each other. Like, all these organizations work together. So I think that the one thing that we do have is relational trust. And I think that I would encourage you, if you're interested in getting involved, you know, go to KIPP.org, go to collegetrack.org, go to onegoal.org, go to oaklandpromise.org, whatever those are, and then reach out and figure out how to get involved. And then as you go forward, we're happy to figure out more as well. So thank you. And now, the final question. So you got 1 minute. Okay. So we have this audience here. And can we give it up for the audience here for a sec? All right. You got 1,000 leaders in this room. What is the single most important thing that we could do to galvanize a movement around our country, around college completion? What could we do, similar to the question here, to galvanize a movement across this country? What can they do? What can we do?
So I want to start because I want to respect that I've used my voice a lot, and then I want others to be the last one heard. And so for me, it's about student voice. Your programs and our schools and all of these institutions, they serve students, and I'm community organizing and advocating for student voice being co-creators. Youth and students need to be co-designing with us, and creating those goals, our 2016 plans and goals and accountabilities, those need to be informed by our students as well. So those SMART E goals that we create, all of that stuff needs to be informed by student voice and student need. And that helps us be accountable. So I think empowering the fact that students can be in the leadership spaces with us. You have 2 excellent students up here that can be part of One Goal and KIPP Through College, and I'm happy to be on College Track with like, what is it that can inform? And I have been in those spaces for College Track, and that just leads to even that much more impact, because at the end of the day, you're serving us, and we also have ways to contribute.
I would definitely say to continue to remind your students that they do belong in predominantly white institutions, that they've earned their place there, and that their narrative is just as powerful as everyone else's, because when you get into a space where you don't see people who really look like you, that becomes a big problem and you lose confidence in yourself. So just remind them daily and they'll work up to it.
I'll jump in. All right, a final thought is...
We'll give claps at the end for everyone. Go ahead.
A final thought, and I haven't mentioned this yet, but I think it's important to teach students how to share their story in a way that empowers them, in a way that shows where their strengths lie. A lot of the students that we're talking about today come from low-income communities. They don't have many resources. Their background and upbringing is not the ideal background and upbringing. So we need to teach students who are coming from low-income communities that their story is important. They can find where they showed strength and where they demonstrated resiliency and how they have persevered and why they belong in college. Because oftentimes students share their story in a way that that's kind of like asking for pity, in a way that's not empowering them. So teaching them how to share their story so that when they're in college, they know, I show perseverance here, and if I showed it here, I can show it here. Teaching students in that way.
I think it lies in advocacy. There are 1,000 of us in this room. Advocate, advocate, advocate. You know, Marlene, Asia, Luigi, they do this every day. And so this is the beginning of a conversation. Each one, reach one. If we do that every day, it's exponential growth, right? If we continue to advocate on behalf of students and this college completion narrative, and we can reach more people, then the conversation that's been happening around college access will happen around college completion. And while you're advocating, please bear in mind, it's not just about breadth, it's not just about depth, it's about both.
So I'm going to build on what Mike said. With a show of hands, how many of you have a bachelor's degree from a university or college? Great. If every single person in this room called their alumni association, or when you are asked for money from your school, you ask, what are you doing for first-generation college students? What kind of programming do you have? What does your HEOP program look like? And then allocate that $50 or $100 that you may or may not give to your college, I guarantee you that we would have a collective impact.
So I think the biggest thing is I said it earlier, but make this our fight. The college completion issue is your issue, wherever you are in the education spectrum, and join these movements. Selfishly, we launched 30 new staff positions last night. We need exceptional people from across the country to join us, and I think that's probably the case across the board. So thanks so much.
And I think Ms. Wu would kill me if I didn't say that. KIPP is also looking for the same, so join the movement.
I echo that. For college track.
Oh.
Awesome. So as we close, I just wanted to offer a few parting thoughts, but first, could we give an applause to our esteemed panel? So I think what I'd like to say is just to build off of what they've said in terms of what we can do from here. We have a lot of moments. You have moments in your classroom. You have moments in your workplace. You have moments in your family. You have moments here. But how do we transform that moment into a movement? And I think one of the things that we're trying to do, at least in Oakland, is that, I remember everybody was like, oh yeah, the mayor's all excited about this, or the superintendent. We don't want it all about the mayor. We don't want it all about the superintendent. If you came to our launch last week, Marlene was there, we had teachers on stage. We had students from kindergarten all the way through college graduation. We had parents, we had community members, we had nonprofit organizations, we had funders, we had elected officials all together. This idea of college completion only sticks if we have a collective movement that is from the grassroots to the grass tops, and we rise and we fall together, and we will not fall. The last thing I wanted to say, too, is that as we go forward, think about that one child. I still remember when I was at Santa Cruz last year and visiting some of my students, and I talked about at the very beginning of this, I had 39 kids that were in my original second grade class, 31 went off to college. 3 of them, 6 went to UCs, 3 of them went to Santa Cruz. I was so pumped. I get there, 2 of them are on academic probation. Talking in a real way, I remember what Marlene talked about. I said, look, cut everything. We didn't do all this. We didn't fight like this so that you can come to school and drop out. What's it going to take? And they talked about it on the real. We connected with resources, and things can happen. And I want to be really clear. I can't serve all my kids, but each one of you knows those specific kids that you have relationship with, those parents that you have relationship with. So as you're thinking about the movement, also think about the people and how you can touch their hearts and how you can help support those children all the way through so we can reach one day. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.